I used to be Binder 38 US for a while, and then was Conquat 6, and then here I am, RJ 127 whatever. Most people know me by Will. If you know me, you know I've been on the Rational Boo podcast. You know what I'm about. I thought I'd just drop in and see how this is working. We're live on TikTok because so many crazy stuff has happened today. It's like the wheels are coming off the cart with the Trump administration. I really don't know what to say. I mean, I could start with so many things, but it's to watch the demolition of the White House. Trump is treating that like that's his house. It's not his house, it's ours. We pay for it. I don't, his thinking is like, I'm here, it's mine, I can do what I want. That's literally like you rent your home to somebody and you come over there to collect the rent, and they've taken out half the kitchen. Just put a hole in the wall. What are you doing? I'm going to put an extension. Yeah, but it's my house. It's my property. What are you doing? Now, don't worry about it. You've always wanted an extension in the kitchen. Yeah, but who's going to pay for it? Oh, don't worry. I'll send you a bill. That's the equivalence of what we're seeing right now. I have never, ever, ever. They're not about government. They're not about government. They're never about government. Governing. I'm just, half the time I am just flabbergasted of what I see right now. Have you ever seen anything like this? Ever seen anything like this, guys? We can go, and I think part of it is a reaction to the No Kings protest. That's basically what I'm thinking. Right now, it is, Saturday was a good day. It really was. It was a good day for all of us. I thought that it was amazing to watch the No Kings protest, to watch people, doing their thing out there and peacefully protesting. Watching the MAGA react to it was kind of, wow. That was really interesting to watch MAGA do its thing. I've never understand. They're so upset. Just let people talk. Let people talk. Let people do their protesting. It wasn't hurting anyone. The only people it was hurting was, I watched these people react. These people react, and it was like, I'm sorry, what? Wasn't that there was a woman in South Carolina pull a weapon? And there's arguments. There's guys in New York that were just like, who cares? It was a peaceful protest. And everyone's going to say, hey, it didn't mean anything. Didn't do anything. No one cared. I don't know. It's doing what Americans always do, is stand up when they're cornered. Americans don't capitulate. That's the weird thing I don't understand about people who are just really dedicated to Donald Trump. How do you just go along with everything? I don't get it. The things are getting worse and worse. JP Fund. Hey, how you doing, JT? They're really freaking out. And like today, during another of the shutdown press conferences with Mike Johnson, is it me or is that man just literally just flailing? It's always the same things he's saying over and over again, and we all know it's not true. We know it's not. He's holding, and today was the chef's kiss of ignorance today. They brought out James Comey. You know James Comey from Kentucky, talking about the Epstein files. Oh, okay. So you're acknowledging there's a problem with the Epstein files. See, that's the thing. They keep telling you, no, we're going to be transparent. It's all good. acknowledging it's the Epstein files. Hey, Mike, how you doing? I can't do guests. This is the first time I've done this in a while, so forgive me. But they're acknowledging the Epstein files. And I like how James Comey is out there going, yeah, nothing. We have seen the Epstein files. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've seen the Epstein files. And the Epstein files have Donald Trump is not in the Epstein files. No, honestly, he ain't in there. I saw them. You know who is in there? Bill Clinton. So we're being transparent. We don't have to release them because I saw them. Right. First of all, they say that Bill Clinton like that's going to go. Most of us will go, and? But let me see the files. Who else is in there? And then you go to Mike Johnson. Hey, Mike, how you doing? He gets up there and he talks about the Epstein files, and then he, bear with me 1 second, these bloody things, and he, and he starts talking about the Epstein files and the victims. He starts talking about the victims. And he says that we want to be transparent with the victims, but it took, and then he drops, but it took so long for them to come forward. Okay. But we're being totally transparent. Then release the files. Let the files go. And hey, by the way, just go ahead and swear in. The thing that drives me nuts, and thank you for joining me in this, guys. Again, this is the first live on TikTok, and I'll see how it goes. Not going to be long because can't do guest. It's locked because you have to do that after you do at least an hour on here, I guess. It's been a while since I've done this crap. But everything's kind of crazy, and it's just like, and I watched that, just the highlights of the press conference, listening to these guys. And now, and the worst part of it is when they brought up a J6er who had been released, who was one of the really bad J6ers who got into the Senate, who rifled through a bunch of the desk, who was given, I believe, 2 years in prison. And the dude got pardoned by Trump because, I'll give him credit. He said he was going to do it, and he did it. Hi, Rocky. How you doing? He was arrested for threatening to assassinate Hakeem Jeffries. He had a plan. So when they asked Mike Johnson about it, is this, about political violence? He just threw that off and said, yeah, who has really political violence? The left. Did you see all those people with signs that were bad against Trump? Yeah, you saw all the violent people on Saturday. What are you talking about? And he says this thinking that it's I've never seen anyone lie like this. Okay? Usually when someone lies, not that I have experience, been caught lying, you kind of hem and haw. Homeboy just basically has, his lies are like, if you study any biology, that a shark has several rows of teeth. And then when they bite and the teeth gets into their prey, another tooth comes out to replace it. They have rows of them. That is Mike Johnson when he tells lies, when he talks in a press conference. One lie doesn't work, another one pops up. It's just like he's got rows and rows and rows of lies, all geared up. I mean, I saw him at George Stephanopoulos and just another lie, another lie, another lie. So it's day 21, day 22 now. Day 22 of the, and if you guys like this, tap the little thing for hearts, because that'll get me up in FYP. It'll let me get up and out, and maybe I'll do a few more of these. I've only been doing these on Substack. Let's see, not as much as Trump. Well, yeah, he does lies as much as Trump, but he gets his JPT Farms. I think Mike Johnson lies as much as Trump, maybe more. Yeah, but he gets his base. He gets his talking points for Trump, and then he extends it. But unlike Trump, who's a rolling, um, what's the word I'm gonna, just rolling and rolling of stuff that comes out of his head, he has a plan. See, the one thing people have to remember, going back to the election of 2020, the idea of the false electors, and this gets lost in all of this bullshit. People keep forgetting the person that came up with the false elector plan and how to do it. So basically to force Mike Pence to throw it back to the states because he'd be confused with the separate certifications that would come in for certain states, came from Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson was the man behind, the brain behind the steal to stop the steal. He came up with that that plan. He was the man behind it, and he got scot away free. No one got to that. Maybe eventually they would have if someone had gone and, if we really had a real prosecutor, not Merrick Garland, then it would have been better. But that's where we're at. But he was the brains behind it. So when you see him do his bit, he's got plans with plans. The problem is he's stuck with this because he's got to protect Trump from the Epstein files, because that discharge is coming. It's coming. That's why they've got the Arizona representative sitting on the sideline. And then I love it. It's victim shaming. Okay, he victim shames Representative Gurvala, saying, well, she should just serve her constituents. I don't know why she's upset. She can still serve. How can you serve them when she's not a sworn-in officer of the House of Representatives and has access to everything? I mean, he sells that that's her fault. I mean, it's like, it's the same thing with, and then what's he do? Also, on that same vein, because that's the way he thinks, we're talking about the reason that Democrats are not going to capitulate in the Senate, because they are asking for, let's be honest, a small thing. All they are asking for is just extend the ACA subsidy so people's health insurance doesn't go up 1,000,000%. They weren't even asking for Medicaid or anything, just that. And it's not going to cost anyone anything. But you have to remember, they're trying to take apart the ACA or Obamacare. Oh, by the way, Obamacare is the ACA. Quick reminder, SNAP is food stamps. I'm going to get to that in a second. But that's all Democrats are talking. That's all they said. Do that and we'll sign off. That's all. Not this $1.6 trillion bullshit about illegal aliens, which Trump repeated on Monday or Sunday, or wherever he did when he was in the Air Force One. That was oh my God, that was just a trip, especially about, no kings, there was no one there, about sending $40 billion to Argentina, which, by the way, that was a currency swap to rise their currency up. It failed. The Argentina peso is dropped again. So our money to go in there and to prop that up failed. Their economy is crap. It's falling apart. Why? Because that guy was not an economist. He was Ronald Reagan on steroids, and it failed. Big time. And now we are bailing them out by letting them sell soybeans to China. Yeah, Trump, that was really great when they asked him about that too. I love that. Yeah, I'm trying to open the markets, but China is getting in the way. No, dude, you shut the markets. That's what drives me about all these farmers. Hey, if you look at your spreadsheets, your P&L sheets, where you bought for and sold stuff, Before 2016, you were selling soybeans to China. Up to 65% of our crop went to China. 2016, 2020, you weren't selling them. Why? Trump got into a trade war with China. 2021 to 2025, January 25, you could sell your soybeans during the Biden administration. Why? Because he said, hey, we're good. Let's make a deal. This is what we want you to do. And you sold your soybeans. Soon as Trump went into absolutely crazed mode with these tariffs, and trust me, I remember that in the beginning. It's just so weird. We're 10 months in, it's insane. This whole thing is insane. What they've done in 10 months. Again, if you're in here, like the live, if you pop in, press the little like button. Again, that'll help me build up FYP, help me kind of rebuild here on TikTok. I'm trying to be low key. I'm trying not to upset people. I mean, it's kind of weird when you lose 3 accounts. Jesus God Almighty. But I'm trying to be low key and trying to keep it down. But I've been watching all the lives. People, it's not anything I'm speaking of. It's not anyone else speaking. I'm not being disparaging to anyone. I'm just telling you the truth. So I do my best for you guys there. But he basically closed it off. He said everything to be fine with the soybean farmers once China opens their markets. Dude, you closed the markets. You closed the markets with your tariffs. I mean, you just basically got into a fight with Chinese. Someone made a comment that's outside the White House. Remember, this White House leaks like a sieve, okay? And there are frustrated people in there. And someone said, quote, "They have no plan for China. They have no way to blunt the Chinese, deal with the Chinese." They said it's just organized chaos. It's chaos. Why? Because Trump says something and he wants it to happen. I.e., you heard the reports about his meeting with Zelensky when Trump told him, quit, surrender. Zelensky said, no. And he got into a screaming match. Maps flew everywhere. I mean, and again, they deny it, but it leaks. I mean, but so that's what it is. He keeps telling everyone, you're going to give me what I want, and they're going, no. He's got the Prime Minister of India pissed at him. He threw the Indonesian Prime Minister under the bus the other day. And so this is what they're dealing with. You can't do international strategy with chaos, with a man who really doesn't know what's going on, who thinks he knows everything. Case in point, how's the Nobel Peace Prize going to work now, bro? Ceasefires. Those of you who are older in the chat, okay, those of you guys are older like me. How many ceasefires have we been through the Middle East? I mean, you can go back to 1948 when Israel was established, okay? And go through it. I mean, just watching history. I mean, how many ceasefires? How many ceasefires were then? Hi, Bo. Haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for popping in. How many ceasefires fell apart that led to war? Ceasefires that were violated later. The 68 war. Ceasefire was violated. The 73 Yom Kippur War. Total ceasefire violated. Okay? And then you went and, hey, Bo. And then they went, and then the Israelis went conservative, and so they keep attacking all their neighbors. And then they had ceasefires, which lead to occasional missile throws and all that. Then came the October 7th, that horrible, horrible attack on Israel. And I want to make this clear. This is not a point on the Israeli people. It's the Israeli government. You have Benjamin Netanyahu still hanging off for dear life not to go to jail. Remember when they announced the ceasefire and Trump went over there? Oh, by the way, the ceasefire came from the Biden administration. They set it up. They set it up. Ooh, remember that? Ooh, yeah. Thank you for the donut. They set it up. It's insane. They set it up. It's like, oh my God. And you kind of go, I mean, it's just crazy. And he just basically, literally, Trump is the guy who, if you're in a lab, how many of you have been in labs? Okay. Now, I was lucky. I always got cute women for my labs, and I worked hard for them or together. But who's been in a lab or had to do multiple, people in a project, and there's the one person that doesn't do a damn thing. Hi. And they just write their name on it. That's Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump is basically that guy in the group project guy who's not going to help you, and you have to figure it out because we're all going to fail because of this guy. So we just took that out. It's already been negotiated. And now Trump, excuse me, let me do something real quick. So now Trump goes to and gets a ceasefire. Sorry, I had to do something to make sure my phone doesn't die. Goes out and gets a ceasefire, basically because the Israelis they cut a deal for the hostages. They got the hostages. But Hamas agreed to it, and people don't see this, and I found it later on. Hamas used that time also because they were getting pushback and opposition in Palestine, because people were going, we're starving, you're using us as targets, and they were starting to push back at Hamas. So what happened is the ceasefire, Hamas gave them the hostages, they gave them what they wanted, and then they went in there and they solidified their power by eliminating their opposition within Palestine. And as soon as they did that, it was on. Now, the Israelis never sent in any aid. They were ready to go. And boom, we're back to bombing. We're back to fighting. It's the truth. Sorry, guys. It is the truth. And it was never going to be any peace, because you cannot have a ceasefire without peace negotiations going in the background. There were no peace negotiations going in the background. And what was Trump's reaction to it? Oh, he calls on the other Arab states to attack Hamas and Palestine. Yeah, nothing says peace or solutions in the Middle East than a wider Middle Eastern war. Oh, by the way, Netanyahu also bombed southern Lebanon, as a reminder. And so there is no diplomacy from the United States anymore. No one trusts us, and there's no diplomatic corps because you kind of aced them. Here we are. So, that's what we're saying. There's no strategy. You guys, you have to understand, this is not about... The worst thing about this government, other than what we see, is the incompetency of it. And if you want to know what incompetency is, on Saturday, if you all know, J.D. Vance went to Camp Pendleton to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Marine Corps. But that was on November 20th, October 20th, and the actual, it's November 10th. But, okay, we know why they did it. They were trying to do a parade. They're trying to one up the No Kings Project. There were a lot of people in San Diego that came out on the new No Kings protest. That surprised me. San Diego's hardcore red. Hardcore red. Especially with the military there. That was really surprising to see that. Tells you. And then I saw, on a side note, I saw a lot of little towns like Birmingham, places that are red with protesters. Hell, there was a big rally in Boise, Idaho. Again, there are more of us than there are of them. And that's why they're trying to disparage what it is. But incompetency, thy name is J.D. Vance. Look, if you want to fire out cannon, you can. Anyone who's seen the 1812 overture with cannon, we know you can do a cannon with blanks and it makes a big boom, okay? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, okay? I know this, you know this. I mean, even casual, everyone casual who's in casual classical music knows that, okay? I mean, you've seen that, Boston Pops. And if you've seen 21 gun salutes for at funerals or at remembrances, and they're blank cannon. There's, as a respect. But they come up with this idea. The original idea was, let's get a few naval ships off the coast, like a cruise missile ship, and fire 3 or 4 Tomahawks over the I-5 freeway. Those of you who do not live in California, the Interstate 5 runs from the Mexican border all the way up to the Oregon border of California, and then also it runs all the way to Canada itself. It is the main thoroughfare there through the West, okay, through all the states. In California, it's the main corridor between Los Angeles and San Diego. And on the weekend, that's a lot of tourist traffic going into San Diego or leaving San Diego. So the original idea was to close down the I-5, and they were going to fire, dear God Almighty, they were going to fire Tomahawk missiles into Camp Pendleton, into empty spaces. Tomahawk missiles. Now, I looked it up when this first came because I wanted to see how much does something like that cost. Now, they are cheaper Tomahawks, $150,000. They just go boom. But the more sophisticated ones with radar tracking and radar evading cost up to $1.9 million. $1.9 million. So on the low end, maybe $500,000. On the high end, close to $4 million to fire those off. Now that got a lot of people. First of all, they just announced it out of the blue, and the governor Newsom of California was going, "Did anyone? What the? Who? What? Where?" And they had to find out about it through the press. So he basically said, "No, we can't do that. No, you can't. You can't do that. You can't close the I-5, and you can't fire live munitions over a populated area." Now, don't let people tell you it was just a freeway. Or no, guys, if you've been in Los Angeles or in the Southern California, there's very little, even in the high desert, even in the deserts, there are populated areas. Okay? I mean, China Lake, they used to do live ammo, but that's way out in the desert. I don't even know they do that anymore. Way back when, that's way up there, Ridgecrest. If you know, you know. But these guys came up with this idea. I know it was an intimidation factor. Okay. So they settled on 155 millimeter shells out of howitzers. Okay. Again, you can file blanks during the celebration. Okay, have the Marine Corps band there do the 1812 overture and then fire off the blanks. But no, oh no, they had to fire live rounds. So they fired 3 live rounds over the I-5 to land in Camp Pendleton. And one became a short round. That's friendly fire. It exploded prematurely over the freeway, and shrapnel struck CHP cars, and the hilarious thing, it struck the security detail of J.D. Vance. Struck him. And like, oh my God. Now everyone's going, well, no one got hurt. It's okay. But you have to put it in perspective. The freeway was not intended to be closed, but Governor Newsom, once he found out that these guys were going to do it, did it. Had the CHP close it off. There are videos of signs popping up, those little signs that you see on freeways about warning about traffic ahead or danger. Be careful, live fire exercise ahead. Excuse me? You think you'd see that on American highway? Well, you do under this Trump administration or the Trump regime or the incompetence that is called J.D. Vance. So, short round. Can you imagine if shrapnel, again, artillery or anti-personnel weapons designed to explode over your enemy, and the shrapnel is supposed to take out the enemy? If you want a good example of that, a good depiction of that, go watch Band of Brothers and the Battle of the Bulge. That's basically what artillery is supposed to do. And one of those shells exploded prematurely over I-5. And if that freeway had that freeway, I swear to my God, that freeway had been normal with traffic, that would have been an absolute disaster. People would have gotten hurt. Someone would have gotten hurt, if not from the shrapnel, but from what had happened from the result of that. And again, those are things like that they don't take into consideration, because all of us mean nothing to this regime. We are toys. We are playthings. They don't care. They don't. And you can see that every day when they talk about us, talk to us, where ICE is becoming unhinged. Reports that, why does ICE need guided missile warheads? Why are you selling warheads? Guided missile warheads. I mean, do you know what there's a design for? What are you going to do? I mean, I thought about when they raided that apartment in Chicago, I thought about that incident in Philadelphia in the 80s where the Philadelphia police literally dropped a bomb on an apartment and burned the neighborhood down. I remember that. And so is this your plan? My biggest fear is they're going to do something so egregious that they cannot get around it. I had spoken to Mike several times about this. Messed up. Well, that's so correct. But here, the civil rights movement, again, I'm going to go back to that. The civil rights movement was the peaceful march. Everyone ignored it. I'll be honest. I mean, because, excuse me, for the people in the North, even Kennedy, even the Kennedy administration did ignore it because they thought it was a local problem in the South. Even though you had the Selma marches, the violence by police on the peaceful protesters, the water hoses, the fire hoses, the people being arrested at lunch counters brutally. Those were things, but they were minor. The people didn't really see it. They saw it as like just agitators. Let's be honest. They thought they were just agitators messing with the normal life. That's one thing that J. Edgar Hoover, why he never moved that much into the South, because he thought those people like Martin Luther King were agitating the society. They weren't accepting the society as it was. Okay? So that was going on until the bombing at the Mississippi church that killed 4 little girls who were just there for choir practice. That's when everything went unhinged. In the sense that was an attack on innocents who had did nothing but were there at a church. And that was when everything started to pick up. That's when even the FBI had to do something about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I will stand by this. Historically, if Kennedy had lived, I don't think we would have gotten the Civil Rights Act or the changes we did. It had to take someone like Lyndon Johnson from Texas, who was a brilliant politician, to push that across. He gets lost in all the Vietnam shit. But when it came to domestic politics, he literally turned the Democratic Party from Dixiecrats to the Democrats we pretty much know today, in the sense that supporting civil rights and people's in the war on poverty. Republicans flooded into that vacuum because it was an opportunity. Anyone who knows the word Strom Thurmond know what I'm talking about. So then, as over the years, we are now gone from the war on poverty to the war on the poor. Okay, that's kind of sad, and that's been coming for 40 years. Because I want to bring up real quickly, because I'm going to bring this to an end in a few minutes. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the likes. I might do this again, maybe when they let me have guests. We're going to do guests, but I was just kind of teasing the waters today with TikTok. I'm going to talk about where you can find me in a few minutes, but I want to do something that I call economic racism. Okay. As you know, in the 50s, when the industrial machine that was the United States was geared up, where there were promises by manufacturing that your child you would have a job for life. They took care of you. You had a good pay. You could be the middle class. You could have a home. You could feed your family. You could raise your family. Your son could literally follow you to the plant and have a life there because that was a promise. Okay. There was a gentleman from General Electric that changed that, and I'm going to research that because I want to do a piece on that because that's really, really important to follow that. But what happened, though, is that basically was for a majority of white Americans. It's when people of color started to demand that, get involved in that, want that for them too, is when things started to change. Civil rights, workplace rules, you couldn't discriminate on jobs, all those things, built up. That's when you started to see the calls for smaller government. Why? Because government was basically stepping in and going, hey, you have to give these people equal rights in a job. Women, minorities, and regardless of sexual preference. That means they were eroding those people in power, which normally were white male Christians. So we come up to the Reagan years. And you have to understand voodoo economics, or the trickle-down economics of Reaganomics, was designed on one thing only: to get rid of social programs. Because all those people in the Republican Party, and that includes every one of those motherfuckers in the Lincoln Project, the Bulwark, they worked for years to show social programs. Only people who used that were people of color. Mostly black people in inner cities. The welfare moms, the welfare queens. You remember those stories in the 80s. I do. They sold that to everyone. So they would cut social programs, cut taxes, but keep taxes low for the rich. The trickle-down theory. Okay? They sold that to you on racism. Okay, am I scientific? Am I historical? No. Am I a historian? No. I'm just going by what I saw for 40 damn years. So that's something that's been predominantly in the United States for 40 years. And this is what we're looking at. This is the legacy of Reagan and the trickle-down economics. And every time Republicans pushed it to a point that the economy collapsed, you get a Democratic majority, Democrat presidency enough to bring it back up using social programs. Then Reaganomics led way to the Tea Party. Now, the Tea Party was a reaction to President Obama trying to get everyone universal health care. He couldn't go that far. Clinton tried it and it blew up in his face. But Clinton also let a lot of things slide. But Obama came up with the ACA as a good middle of the road. People can get insurance through a marketplace that we subsidize. It's not the best, but at least it's better than nothing. And that's been around for what? The 90s? We're close to 30 years, 20 years, 30 years now. And everyone has used it. Everyone has used it, including the red states. But the Tea Party came from it because President Obama, and that's race, and this whole idea of this is a socialist thing because because you had to do that as part of your taxes. It was all bullshit. And the Tea Party also pressed more of cutting of social programs. Okay? Kevin McCarthy, the other guy that was there, someone may tell me down in the comments, that can tell you, they push that. And, the whole Newt Gingrich, that whole bullshit on the Clinton, that was before. But the Tea Party was the racist core, the racist acorn seed that sprouted into MAGA. Now, normally, MAGA, we would ignore them. These people were out of their minds. We know that. We've seen them for decades. All right? And Paul Ryan, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, Paul Ryan. And that's 3Heart14159. Thank you. I appreciate that, ma'am. But it was the acorn that sprouted into this twisted tree known as MAGA that was cultivated and watered by Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, all these folk. They got someone in Donald Trump that could take their bullshit and sell it to the poorest of the poor. Again, remember what Lyndon Johnson said, that a poor white man will empty out his pockets for a rich man if it makes him feel superior to a poor black man or a person of color. And Trump rode the immigration fear and rode the fear of the other, basically people of color, to the presidency. Remember, that's the thing. His first administration and this administration has always been about hate. Now, the first administration was surrounded by normal government or rap chicks who knew how the government worked and spent most of their 4 years going, we can't do that. And Trump's going, why? Because we can't. Because this is the federal, because we are a government, not a monarchy. Same thing. That's why Milley pushed on him. You can't do that. Why? Because the military is not supposed to do that. You're not a king. You cannot make those orders. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. So he loses the election, but he still stays with us because of January 6th, to stop the steal, which never ends. It's still out there to today. And now he's back in the presidency with no guardrails because each one of those people are not working for him. Each one of those people are gone or about to be indicted eventually. So he got all his sycophants. At least the people in his original cabinet cared about their job. These people don't care about their job. Bondi, Noam, Kash Patel, Scott, the Treasury guy, the Commerce guy, they don't care all they care about is being in the seat, having power, and looking good, and doing what Donald Trump says. Who has cabinet meetings, televised cabinet meetings, where all the cabinet secretaries are pretty much required to praise the president? Cabinet meetings don't work like that. Cabinet meetings are designed to get things done behind closed doors. Honestly, we're not supposed to see that, okay? We're not supposed to see that. We really aren't. So that leads us to what's about to happen in November. They're going to pull the plug on EBT, on SNAP, food stamps. And you know the saddest thing I've been seeing through TikTok and all the videos are the ghouls that have come up again, bringing up the old 80s welfare queens and, pull yourself up by the bootstraps bullshit. The worst one, and I've been seeing, and a lot of people are seeing that lady saying that she works 2 jobs, her husband works 1, sitting there eating toast while going after people who use SNAP. First of all, lady, of one things I hate more than anything in my life is listening to people munch. I hate that. You sound really gross. It's just as bad as the words that come out of your mouth. The worst statement about that woman munching on her burnt peanut butter toast was, well, what happened to your October? Did you spend it on processed foods? You didn't get staples? Lady, they ate. They used the food for what it is. And basically, the majority of people on SNAP are not depending on it for everything. It's a supplement because a lot of them are the working poor. That's a fact. And here's another fact for you all, because those people were saying, fuck it, cut them off. One guy's saying, hey, that's great. That means grocery prices will go down because they won't raise them from the 1st and the 15th when they get their benefits. No. You people are celebrating misery, and it makes me ill. Okay? It shouldn't happen, but this is based on racism, because the Trump regime thinks the only people who are going to be affected are the people in the inner cities, the black people, them folk. You know it's right. You can hear it in their voices. The welfare queens and all that. No, this is the working poor, because no one gets paid in a living wage. Well, why should you have to get paid a living wage if you work at McDonald's? Because it's all about profit. You can do a living wage with a restaurant and still have a profit, and prices can be level. It takes work, but that's what you can do. The problem is, especially with big companies, they don't want to do that. I will always say do not fault Bezos for Amazon. Amazon is a brilliant thing, honestly. Where I fault him at is that pay your workers a livable wage with insurance, and how much is that going to take off your profits? Not that much. Oh, by the way, thank you, Amazon AWS, for putting a lot of people out of work yesterday. And they already have side gigs. Amazon itself, and with Prime, all that, the warehouse thing is almost a side gig now. But you won't pay them a livable wage. Why? Because you're greedy. The profit margin has to be this. No, you can make money without exploiting people. That's a fact. I am not an anti-capitalist guy. Well, I am a bad capitalist hater, because that always comes back to bite you in the ass. It always has. Look at history. Okay? You can make consistent money if you put money back into your company, create new products, and still work on a margin. And don't worry, don't adhere to stockholders, because they only care about themselves. And the worst thing that ever exists in this planet right now are venture funds and hedge funds, because they've destroyed a lot of lives. And that's another discussion for another day. But they want to make people hungry, because to make a point. And what's the point? Well, for the Trump regime right now is to kind of turn around, because it's all Democrats' fault. All they got to do is do what we want, and everything will be fine. So we're going to starve these people who are your constituency, because that's what they see it. They see that these are all Democrats going to be effective. No. It's going to be a majority of people in red states that are not going to be able to feed their families. And if you're one of those people who think that's a good thing, you need to get right with God. You need a come to Jesus meeting, because that's not what Jesus said, or good Christians or act like that. Props to many people who are trying to start an organized community and everything to help people in this time, to make sure they don't have no hope, to help people out, because a lot of people are going to be in those lines too. Food pantries is military families. Okay? And if you've been there, and I've been there, that's a scary thing. Scary. But they don't care. Why? Because they need the ballroom being built. They live on a different plateau. They think that Americans are weak, and that it's mostly that as long as we let it happen to the other guy, everyone else will support us. You're about to find out it doesn't work like that. Quick reminder to you upper echelon one percenters, or people who worship the one percenters. I don't get you. Understand, if you're poor middle class, why you think Elon Musk gives a fuck about you, or Trump, or Bezos, or Peter Thiel, and all of them. They don't. They hate us because we might be middle class. They don't want middle class, they want serfs. Look up the actual definition of what a serf is. Really, really look at it. If you haven't ever, because that's a term people use. But when you see it, what it really was, you understand why the Russian Revolution went off. And the same thing with the French Revolution. The violence that came from both of them. Because when you starve a population, when you take away a population's hope, then things get really dicey and bad. And some people are saying, well, that's what they want. They want to encourage people to go out there, and then they can go ahead and clamp down. The only problem with that, and I'll give you a good example of that, is the Rodney King riots. The Rodney King riots would not have gone off if Daryl Gates had put the police presence out right after the verdict. He sat on it. Even when the violence was starting to ramp up, you can look it up. Reports is that they sat back, and because to make a point, so he can go out there and be violent. Because Daryl Gates once said in an interview or some kind of meeting, the reason you have crime is that people have too many rights. And he was trying to make a point, okay? What happened is that it got out of hand, and it blew up in his face. Fast forward here, if they want to do that, and it blows up, they're not going to be able to tamp it down. They're not going to be able to get control. They're not going to be able to do what they want. And it's going to be worse. One thing I'm going to tell all of you, I do not fear the Insurrection Act. I don't. You know why? Because there ain't enough of them to stop all of us. And you saw Americans when they started to push on when they started talking about the No Kings thing as, a bunch of terrorists, Hamas, more people went. Okay? More people went. So the point is, what I'm saying is, if that's the idea, that's a bad idea, guys. All right? And if you think that's going to control Americans, it's not going to work. Because I'll say this to the bitter end. We are not built like that. A minority are. We can see that. But not the majority of us. We're not built like that. Never have been. We don't capitulate. And if they think that's going to work, it's not going to work. It's really not going to work, guys. And I say that because I don't want that shit to happen. I want to see a peaceful transition of power again, like we've always had for 250 fucking years. But they're pushing. All right, and we've been resisting. But food, fear of not being able to, a fear of starvation, that makes people do some very bad things. And that's the scary part, that these guys think they're smarter than the rest of us. It's going to blow up in their faces. All right, guys, it's time for me to go because I still have to work tomorrow. I really appreciate this is my first TikTok live in a long time. Those of you who joined me, thank you. If you want to find me, I am here at TikTok, RJ127. Just follow me if you like. It's RJ12764 at TikTok. If you have any questions for me, you can reach me at kumquat6@outlook.com. I'll take emails. If you want to be a guest on my Substack lives, I am on Substack at Binder38US at Substack, my old handle. I am on YouTube at Binder38US. I'm always open to guests. I'd love to do that. It's a lot easier to try to carry this by yourself. Also, if you're interested, I do have a subscription service at Substack if you want to support my work. Also, if you send me an email, I will take a one-time payment. If you want to do Venmo, I would love to send you a link if you want to help me out so I can do this a little bit more. But this is my first live here on TikTok. Everything went well. For all you who joined me, I really, really appreciate it. I hope I gave you something today. And like I always say, and I'm going to continue to say, remember, as we proved on Saturday, a lot more of us than there is of them. Be safe. I will talk to you soon. Reach out to me. I would be more than happy to hear from you. You guys be safe.